The story of Canadian Tire acquiring Hudson Bay brands for $30 million has been all over the news. When I first heard, I had to double check to make sure it wasn't $30 million in Canadian Tire money.
What is this? What is this? Where's all the money? That's as good as money, sir.
For anyone that's been in a Bay store over the past few years, it's no surprise that they're closing down. It's crazy to think in 2006, the company was sold to American investor Jerry Zucker for $1.1 billion. And 15 years ago, it was on top of the world with their Olympic clothing line that featured their famous red mittens. As part of the Hudson Bay Company's financial issues and filing for creditor protection, their assets were auctioned off. Starting March 7th, 407 potential buyers were contacted to see if they're interested on bidding on the company or its assets, which included BC businesswoman Ruby Liu. She was the highest bidder for 28 Hudson Bay store leases, but was outbid on the brand names. Canadian Tire had a good reason to be the most aggressive bidder on the Hudson Bay Company's brand names. Very similar, in 2018, Canadian Tire purchased hockey brand Sherwood for $15 million. For the non-hockey fans, Sherwood has a long history of making their famous wood sticks that many legends of the game use. Ken Dryden's trademark pose, the Golden Jet Bobby Hull's blistering slap shot, and Bobby Orr flying through the air, all done with a Sherwood stick. But at the turn of the century, players transitioned from wood to composite sticks, and Sherwood didn't keep up with the technology, and they were dying. Their product was being used less for hockey and more for household chores.
I wash myself with a rag on a stick.
They filed for bankruptcy in 2008 and had their ownership bounce around before landing with Canadian Tire. Canadian Tire's done a great job revitalizing the brand by investing in technology and forming partnerships with some of the game's biggest stars. Now, Canadian Tire doesn't report their hockey equipment sales separately, but it's safe to say, based on the aggressiveness during the Hudson Bay auction, that they believe they have a recipe for success. This is not a recommendation to purchase Canadian Tire shares. Please talk to a financial advisor first to see if it is a good fit for your portfolio. I find it interesting that even with their long list of sister companies they own, when going through their recent financial statements, 71% of their revenue comes from the Canadian Tire brand. $30 million sounds like a lot of money, but for a company with a current market value of $9.5 billion, it's chump change. And I would say they've already gotten their money's worth with all the news coverage and being able to position themselves as Canada's company. Canadian Tire spends $400 million on marketing and advertising alone each year. In 2012, shoe company Skechers spent $40 million US to settle a class action lawsuit. Shockingly, people didn't lose weight by simply wearing their shape-up shoes.
You can't handle the truth!
Skechers is currently the third best-selling shoe company in the world, and on May 5th was sold to 3G Capital for $9.42 billion. The Hudson Bay acquisition is getting a lot of attention, but it isn't even close to being Canadian Tire's largest transaction this year. In 2018, they purchased clothing brand Helly Hansen for $985 million. And in February, sold for $1.3 billion to Contour Brands, which is the maker of Wrangler jeans. On the same day news broke that Canadian Tire was purchasing Hudson Bay brands, another acquisition was announced. This one showed a lot of the same characteristics, but was a lot more expensive. Foot Locker was purchased by Dick's Sporting Goods for $2.4 billion.
What the hell were you thinking?
Like Hudson Bay, Foot Locker has a rich history, as they are the legal continuation of the powerhouse retailer Woolworth. Foot Locker started in 1974, and in 1997, the failing Woolworth closed its last remaining department stores and changed its name to its most profitable division. Champs is another brand owned by Foot Locker. Just like the Bay carrying third-party fashion and lifestyle brands, Foot Locker is very similar in the footwear game. Their business is heavily reliant on Nike and Adidas. In 2021, Foot Locker reported that 70% of their sales came from Nike alone. Recently, Foot Locker has been struggling, as Nike and other major athletic brands have been shifting their sales strategies to sell directly to consumers online or through their own stores.
Stop hogging it, Mike.
At its peak in 2017, there were over 3,300 Foot Locker stores worldwide. Currently, the number of stores has fallen to 2,500 and continues to decline. When compared to the Foot Locker acquisition, the Hudson Bay purchase looks a lot more attractive. Dick's, currently valued at $13 billion, made a much larger investment at $2.4 billion. Time will tell if these recent acquisitions will pay off or were just a waste of money. Feel free to reach out with any financial questions. See you next time.